I think we're good over here. Good afternoon or evening, I guess. Feels a little blurry. Sorry. That's probably rude. Okay, let's see. I think we got everything over here. Do you want your paper? Oh, it's over here. Oh. Actually, that's probably fine, you think? For you? That's good for you? Yeah, here, over here. Am I supposed to wear this? Yeah, turn it on. Where's the button? Just like it. Is it just the button? Oh, no, it's the button. Oh, on the back. I think I accidentally got a new one. What's the, maybe I have to hold it. Oh, you have to hold it down. And it'll turn green. Oh. Yeah. There's a little button where you can hold it here. I hope this works. If anyone's here, let me know if you can hear us. I don't have no sound. Anyone on TikTok, can you hear us? I see people joining. I can hear. Okay, cool, good. We've got sound. All right. We shall begin. Let's get started. Blessed Samhain. Running out of space. I don't know if anyone can hear the music. We're playing some music by a local artist, Abby Spinner, right? So we're going to do a live ritual, and then afterwards we'll just stay and chat.
You want to look at this one so that you can work in?
I'm trying to get in the middle of both of them. Then you can't see you on the other one.
Oh, that's okay.
That's all right.
They need to see you.
Okay. We'll come here.
Sing through my voice, play through my hands, let the way be open.
Turn the music down a little bit. I don't know if they can hear it. Let's see. And it looks like everyone can probably, I know you can hear me over here. I hope they can hear me on
I would
YouTube.
if you could turn
Should we turn it a
this
little
one
bit?
just because if you're really getting cut off. in it.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
That's good. All right, let's get started. Welcome, dear friends, on this sacred night leading up to Samhain, where the veil between the worlds is thin. We are here to lay the old year to rest. Let us honor what was, release what needs to go, and welcome the coming darkness of the new year with wisdom and reflection. I'm joined today by my dear friend Jeannie, who's also a coven member, As the old year fades into shadow, we stand on the threshold of the new. I name this place a sacred time and sacred space. Here, we acknowledge the turning of the wheel, the end of one cycle, and the promise of the next. Let's call it quits. Eastern winds, spirit of air, we invite you to blow away the old and bring clarity to our minds as we step into the new year. Southern flames, spirit of fire, we invite you to burn bright and illuminate our path. Give us the strength to release and transform. Flowing west, spirit of water, we invite you to cleanse our spirits and carry away that which no longer serves us. Northern lands, spirit of earth, we invite you to ground us, offering stability and wisdom as we reflect on the passing year. On this sacred night, we gather to honor the passing of the old year and to embrace the coming darkness. Samhain marks the final harvest, the time when we prepare for winter, and the moment when the veil between the worlds is at its thinnest. Tonight, we honor those who have crossed over, release the old, and make space for the wisdom of the new year.
We light the orange candle in gratitude for the lessons and abundance of the year past. As the flames burn, we acknowledge all we have gained, the joy and the sorrow alike, knowing it has shaped us. We now light the black candle to represent the night that comes. The old year falls to rest, and we step into the quiet, reflective time of winter. Let the darkness surround us, not with fear, but with wisdom, as we prepare to dream and plant seeds for the future.
On this night, we bless these intentions, asking that they be nurtured in the darkness of winter and bloom with the return of the light. We hold your intentions in this sacred space, trusting the energies of Samhain to transform them into the seeds of the new year. The pomegranate, a symbol of life, death, and rebirth, has long been associated with the mysteries of the underworld and transformation. Its seeds represent the cycle of growth and decay, reminding us that every ending is also a beginning. Just like the many seeds inside, there are countless opportunities for new growth, hidden in the darkness of winter. Each seed represents the potential of what we can nurture within ourselves. As we enter the dark half of the year, we are called to reflect on our inner world, to plant the seeds of our desires, and to trust that they will bloom when the light returns. This pomegranate represents the wisdom of knowing when to let go, when to nurture new. As we move through the season, may we carry this understanding forward.
May you never be hungry. May your harvest always be fruitful. And may you find rest in the coming winter, knowing the light shall return. May you never be thirsty. May you always empty your cup so it can be refilled again. Blessed be. Blessed be.
As we lay the old year to rest, may we find peace in the cycles of life, in both the light and the dark. May the seeds we plant in this time of reflection bloom with the coming spring. Let us carry the wisdom of this moment in our hearts, knowing we are always growing, always changing, and always connected to the rhythm of nature. Blessed be. Now we will release the quarters. Spirit of earth, thank you for grounding and supporting us. Blessed be. Spirit of water, thank you for carrying away the old and bringing us clarity. Blessed be. Spirit of fire, thank you for your warmth and transformative energy. Blessed be. Spirit of air, thank you for refreshing our thoughts and clearing our path. Blessed be. Now let's close the circle. May the circle be open, but unbroken. May the peace of the goddess be ever in your heart. Merry meet and merry part, and merry meet again. Woohoo! Alright, I think I'm gonna let these burn for a little bit. I kind of like them. They're appropriate for Samhain. So if anyone has questions, we're going to hang around for a little bit. If you have questions about the coven or just witchcraft or being witches, we'll chat and we'll just chat amongst ourselves too, don't worry.
We'll do our best to answer your questions.
Yeah, we'll try to entertain you a little bit. Let us know if you have questions. I see quite a few people are up here. Let's see. Oh, we might have a few trolls on, but that's okay. You've arrived. That was lovely. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Vegan prepper, yeah, said that was lovely.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for the compliment. We did this last month, I think. Were you here for summer solstice? Or just Madden? Matt, okay. So I did one live for summer solstice, and so this is going to be the third one that I've done, and the second one that Jeannie's joined me with. Yeah, and I really like them. We do rituals quite often anyway. We've been doing them for a long time. So lovely ritual. Thank you, Griffin999. Thanks for sharing. Blessed be. Yeah, we've been doing them for, I don't know, 8 years? I want to say it's been quite a while that we first started doing them. And
probably around 2016?
Yeah, I think so, because my oldest was a baby.
There you go.
And he's not a baby. He's so far from it.
Yeah, he was a little one.
He was. I'm trying to think what would have been the first. I mean, we had our regular Saturday rituals, but maybe there was a Yule ritual at the
Probably.
center. That was
Definitely,
more, ritual-like and traditional.
yeah, they probably had Yule. I know definitely they had Midsummers.
Oh,
They
yeah.
always did Midsummers, and that
Yeah.
was always a fun one to do.
At the center?
Mhm.
Yeah. I think
That was the
center.
big summer solstice that
Mhm.
my mom used to
Mhm.
do. Yeah, that was always good.
Have you been to, Goddess Temple? Do they do a big one for summer solstice or anything?
Out at the temple?
Uh-huh.
I haven't been out for theirs.
Yeah.
A couple, but
I've
not
only
too
gone to
many.
once.
Yeah, yeah, and I've gone out there for bone dance, which is actually tonight.
Oh, is it?
Mhm. And I've been out there for.
Very fitting to have Abby's music.
Exactly.
That's
Oh,
her
yeah.
event.
And I've been out there for Earth Song. Rhea does Earth Song in April.
Okay,
For Earth Day.
for Earth Day.
So I've done those.
I like
But yeah, it's,
Yeah.
it's nice
I
out
should
there.
make a point to go. I like it out there. All right, let's say we have a question. What is your practice? All right, so I'll describe mine and then Jeannie, you can describe yours. So I would I consider myself a domestic witch. So that's really what a naturally modern witch is there's so much, blending when it comes to green witchcraft, hearth witchcraft, or house witchcraft, and kitchen witchcraft. So it's a blend of all three of those. It's such a fluid thing. So I say I'm a domestic witch, and then some people will ask about my spirituality. So my background with studies and being in a coven was previously Wiccan, but right now I would consider myself earth-based or goddess-based and animist, if that helps explain.
Oh, I'm
Jeannie,
just
what about you?
extremely eclectic. I take a little bit of everything. I'm very much just down to earth, and whatever I feel in the moment, whatever works. I've read a lot about a lot of different things, so I just bring in whatever feels right for whatever I'm doing. My spiritual background is Jewish, but I also study Buddhism, so I call myself a pagan Jubu, because I do a little bit of all of it, and I just mishmash it all together.
Yeah.
But that's my term, pagan Jubu.
She coined the term.
Exactly.
I've never heard that before, so yeah, you're the one.
I did.
Yeah. How did you get into mixing Buddhism? Did you have a teacher, or is it something that you
Sort of.
It's more principles, I guess, than a
Yeah, and it's kind
spirituality.
of Buddhism and Shinto, which is also very Japanese, but because I'm so interested in the Japanese culture,
Uh-huh.
I sort of am doing Japanese tea ceremony.
Yeah.
A lot of the Buddhism and Shinto practices are part of the tea ceremony, so I incorporated that in the goddesses with everything.
I think that's one thing that is always very inspiring and interesting to me, how in many other cultures, spirituality is just a normal part of everyday life. It,
Mhm.
doesn't have the compartmentalization that we do in our culture.
Right,
And understandably, and we have such a freedom of religion, or,
right.
such a variation and things like that. So understandably, in other places, it might not be as varied, but you can tell that even when you look at ancient cultures. That's one thing that I learned so much, is that their spirituality is just a part of their way of life.
It's their everyday thing.
It's
And
so
some of
true.
it, like Shintoism and some of the old Egyptian ones, are very, and I know from Shinto specifically, but they're very localized. So they're in kami, or their gods or goddesses are very localized to a specific area. So Shintoism in particular is not one that's really all over the world. It's very localized to, and you could do that, if you think about it, and it's very nature-based. So if you think about, well, what's very localized to here, Las Vegas, how can I incorporate that sort of nature-based thing? So
Absolutely.
it's working with the seasons and that.
What ritual are we performing? We just finished a Samhain ritual. And I say Samhain because that's what most people know it by. In our coven, I always say to name them for yourself based on your relationship with nature. So I would call it the shift into the season of rest, because we're coming into the season of rest. Also, it corresponds with Earth, so you might hear it as the season of Earth. So that's really what I would call it. I have my own wheel of the year, and we go through creating our own wheel of the year and naming moons and things like that. So, but we use Samhain because a lot of people recognize it as Samhain.
Yeah.
Is that what you typically call it?
I've
or do
always
you have
called it
another name?
Samhain, but it kind of flows between, you've got Samhain, All Hallows Eve, All Saints Day, I don't say it right, I apologize, I don't say it right, the November 2nd, Day of the
Day of the Dead.
Day of the Dead. And so it's all this
More things.
couple of days between like October 30th through November 2nd but I think the running theme through it is honoring ancestors and things like that. So they're very similar to each other, but each culture has slight differences to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to, I got you 12 years of witchcraft for me. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Jeannie, how long would you say you've been practicing? It's kind of hard to pinpoint at probably one moment.
Yeah, I mean, when I was young, I mean, we're talking a teenager, I used to play with doing spells with my
Yeah.
girlfriend and things like that. And then I got into my 20s and I would start with tarot cards. And so I dabbled here and there. But I think a solid practice is probably about 20 years. You know, is when I really started making it a habit all the time.
Yeah, yeah. I would put mine about over 20 years, but it's definitely been interesting. It's been so different from one season to the next. So my mom was always very witchy, so I went through her stuff and found her tarot cards. I'm like, how do you play this game, you know? So it wasn't anything that was off limits to me, but we did live in the South most of the time, and so it wasn't something you really talked about.
Yeah.
It was like, don't tell anyone about it. And when I was about 10 or 11, we moved to New Hampshire, and we were not far from Salem. And so that's where I remember like going into Barnes and Noble or going into smaller bookstores and being like, wow, look at this witchcraft book, Scott Cunningham, you know. I still have A Complete Idiot's Guide to Wicca, like that was the first book. And so that was I think in the year 2000, and it kind of grew from there. So even when I was really young, I found a coven, and they had certain rules about who could join, like I had to be a certain age or, you know, things like that. And they you know, started you more as like a study group instead of actually joining into the coven, and then we moved, and so, you know, quite a while bouncing around with different, you know, groups.
You get different experiences.
Yeah, different
with different groups.
experiences, yeah. And I'd say what really solidified it was when we were living just outside DC, and I really got into the Wheel of the Year. And then we moved to the desert, and it was very different.
Yeah.
So although the Wheel of the Year was not based off of the environment in DC, it was closer than here, for sure. We got snow, we got, you know, I could recognize the seasons. Here, I really had to dig deep to recognize the seasons, but it was the most beautiful experience when I finally could get it. You know, I could see certain plants, they had their season and they would come and bloom and go to seed, and, you know, we might not have beautiful leaves here, but the summer makes everything crispy, and that's when it sort of looks like fall, because like the leaves are crispy and falling. And not because it's cold, because they're lacking water, but you do see that that's how the environment changes around here. And so that's when it really became a way of life. It really became a way of life.
There are very subtle changes. You know, you kind of have to, like for me, it's funny, you know, you don't see it, but my sinuses noticed when the season changes. And the day it got cold here, I started having a headache because the barometric pressure shifted. And I'm like, oh, that's my sign that we're in fall now.
Yeah. I always notice here, I can't recall if it was other places I had lived. I don't know if I was paying as close of attention, but here it gets really windy right before the season changes. Really, really windy. And I told my husband, I was like, oh, it's windy, it's going to get cold tomorrow, the season's going to change. I was like, that's a witchy thing. He's like, that's not a witchy thing, that's like a weather thing. I was like, no, but it is a witchy thing, because before we had meteorologists or before we had technology, people would have had to pay attention to these things.
Patterns and things like that.
Yeah, it is a witchy thing.
It is a witchy
Don't
thing.
tell me it's,
Just
I
go
know,
with it.
I know. He
I'm the
doesn't
witch.
know. Yeah. He doesn't know. All right, let's see. What styles do we practice? So they work with Greencraft, Divination, with work with Death, Greencraft, and Divination. Jeannie, what types of? I do green witchcraft, kitchen witchcraft, house witchcraft. I definitely do some divination, a lot of candle magic. What do you do? What do you like to practice? Yeah.
Pretty much all of the
You know,
above.
I'm not too shy about stuff too. You might think like a green witch is, you know, just like bubbly. You know, I'm not all love and light all the time either, you know.
Right.
I'm not.
Yeah, there's a time for everything, you know, throw in a little fairy stuff, or,
Right.
you know. Like I said, I really look at what the intention I want to bring about,
Mhm.
and then I decide what I'm going to do,
Yeah.
or what I'm going to use
Yeah.
to do it. So some things work better than others. You know.
What's your favorite form of divination?
Tarot cards?
Yeah.
I love my tarot cards, or oracle cards, either one. You know, I'll kind of, like I do some of the intention, you know, that you have. And so I'll read the person's intention or what their request is, and then I'll just kind of breathe into it and then listen to not only what set of cards I want to choose to answer their question or assist them, but if it's a tarot card or an oracle card, and am I going to bring one card or 3 cards, or am I going to use the fairies or the mermaids or you know, I kind of breathe into that and just
Yeah.
let the divine tell me, you know,
Yes.
how to assist the person, you know.
Now, do you feel like working with fairies or the fae? Do you use the words interchangeably?
Interchangeably, yeah.
Do you feel like do you always get good things, or do you also get like the mischievous side sometimes?
Definitely mischievous.
Yeah.
Yes, a little bit about. I haven't seen anything really negative, but it's definitely mischievous.
Yeah.
Which sometimes I think, I don't know if that's just the fairies, or if I've got a lot of fairy in me, because I tend to be a little bit of the. I have a T-shirt that says Goddess of Mischief, because
Oh, I like that.
I'm very much a, you know, I love Lucky and that kind of mischievous playfulness. And there's a place for that too, you know, there's a time and a place for a little lightheartedness.
And it can teach you too if you work with tricksters, you know. I think that's sort of the cunning part.
Yes,
You know, you
right.
have to be, sometimes I feel like cunning gets a bad rep, but it doesn't mean, it's not negative, it's just, it's
Right.
like
There's
clever, you
yeah,
know?
Yeah,
Clever.
there's a time and a place for it all. What do you like?
For divination, tarot cards, but I didn't always love tarot cards. Originally the Rider-Waite-Smith deck just didn't speak to me, and then I got a hold of the Crafter's Tarot. And I always say I speak correspondences, and most things I do go back to elements. So I start with, you know, the general theme or idea behind fire, you know, earth, air, fire, water, right? And then you can categorize things. To me, that's how my brain works. So when I use the Crafter's Tarot, it would, instead of saying pentacles, it would say earth. And it just clicked for me. And now I can use a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and it makes sense to me now, but I had to find some way to speak that language.
To connect with it.
Yeah,
Yeah, my
yeah.
first deck was an Aquarian deck, which is like an offshoot of that one. And even though it had some, you know, some beautiful cards, and you know, I had a beautiful box that goes with the star card and everything, I had a hard time connecting with it. And it was the only deck I had for years. And then somebody said to me, the Rider-Waite and the Aquarian deck are very masculine decks. And so then I started getting some other decks, and like you, started connecting with other ones. You know, maybe I have a goddess deck, I have a steampunk deck, I have a fairy deck, I have a and so once I started connecting with softer ones, or ones that fit me, it was easier to read. So I don't use the other one quite as much, the Aquarian one, because it is kind of a tough one. But yeah, you have to like we were talking about cards, you have to have that symbiotic relationship with your cards for it to speak to you. You know, it has to speak your language.
That is interesting you say that about it being, you know, feeling more feminine or goddess-based, because the Crafter's Tarot very much is. It doesn't have any kings. It, you know, switches those to, I think those Adelitas, or, you know, I'm trying to remember what it was. I think that's what it is. Because the creator has Mexican heritage, so she uses madre, and she's Adelitas and curanderas, and what I love about that one especially is a lot of the plants are like native plants here. So I love that so much. And so that one, yes, she doesn't have any like masculine archetypes in it.
Yeah, and that's it. It really has to speak your language for you to be able to talk to the deck, and for the deck to speak to you. You have to have the same language.
Yes, yes.
That's important.
And then the other thing that I love is coin. I will flip a coin. I started with regular coins, you know, just a quarter or whatever, heads, tails, 2 out of 3. And now I have a whole like drawers full of coins that I use for divination coins. So I have one that says yes and no on either side, and I have some old 50-cent coins, and some from different countries, and I'll use them for divination. I kind of started doing it like all day, every decision. So maybe it's becoming a crutch.
The lady at the checkout store, she may not be too happy with you.
But I mean, like daily life and mostly like business decisions or work things, you know,
Right.
it takes the pressure off.
Yeah, sometimes it does, you know. I've been using runes a little bit lately too. Not as divination, but more in my spell work.
Me too, yeah.
Yeah,
They
and I
didn't
kinda
speak
like
to me as
those.
much for divination. I could
Yeah.
probably work with them more, but they didn't speak to me as much.
Mm-mm. But definitely it's spell work, you know. I will, I'm spacing on the word, but you know, I'll empower them or whatever
Yes,
with
yeah.
something, and I'll use them, and I'll, you know, like I have a fairy at my front door, or a witch at my front door, but behind her has a room for protection and things like that. So I use it for travel. I've got one in my car, so yeah, that's when I use them, is in my spell work.
Yeah, I do that a lot too with spell work. Or sigil.
Sigils are great too for that.
How do I start learning about witchcraft? I'm interested, but I grew up religious. Great question.
And you came to the right
Great
source.
question.
She can help
Great
you.
question. Yeah, so, well, the first thing I would say is to ask yourself if you are interested in a new practice or a new like spirituality or religion, because that can kind of point you in the right direction. To some people who teach, like myself, I mostly teach practice, and so we come from, in our coven, we come from many different spiritual paths and blended spiritual paths. And so, but you might also be interested in a new spirituality. So you might, the next step is typically Wicca.
Right.
That's usually the one that most people will go to, and that's a good start. It gives you a good, well-rounded basis of a framework of what many pagans might believe or have practiced at one time. But don't confuse, you know, everybody as being Wiccan.
Right.
But you'll probably see a lot of familiar things if you familiarize yourself with Wicca. It's a good jumping off point. So from there, you can kind of decide what books you want to pick up. Is it something that's going to be more practice-based, like a spell book, where it will just tell you step by step what to do? Yeah. I've got one coming out in March if you want to pick it up. You can pre-order it now. And that one's meant to get you to stop reading and start practicing. Like, everything in it is meant to be easy and easy to substitute, but real life steps if you're having a problem at work or in your relationship, or you need to protect your kids when they go to school, you're going to travel. It's meant to be really, really practical. So that might tell you if you want to pick up something like a how-to book or something that's more of a deep dive into spirituality. So that's probably where I would start.
I would also add, because my background, my religious background, very different from my spiritual. My religious background is kind of a mishmash. My mother's side of the family is Jewish, and I went to a Baptist school, so I got all kinds of religion. But when I found that nothing fit real well, my first step transition before becoming a pagan was to find the spirituality within Judaism. And that was an easier transition because I started to see that there is a mystical and there is a spiritual aspect to the religion that I knew. And so I sort of started there. So, and I think I don't remember if you said she was a Christian or Catholic, but I think there is a mystical aspect to, you know, all of them. So, you know, if you want to dip your toe into it a little bit, maybe start with where you're familiar and then start looking at where's the mystical there, and then you might grow from that.
I love that, because I'm a firm believer that everyone practices magic. They might not call it that. They might have rules around who can practice it for what reason. You know, different organized religions will say not just anyone can do this.
And everybody can.
Yeah, right. And so even if you're looking at, can't believe it slipped my mind, communion. Even if you're looking at communion, you can see the ritual in it, right? You can see the symbolism and all of the magic within that. So that is a good way to look at it, or a good way to start, is to see the magic that's already there.
Yeah. And then you start seeing similarities too, like you said. I've been to Christian churches, I've been to obviously Jewish temples, I've been to a lot of it. Pagan rituals, you start to see the similarity in the ritual where, you know, somehow there's a divine source being called in, somehow there's a ritual, there's an order to what you're doing. So you start to see a lot of similarities in things, you know.
Absolutely. Any more questions? All right, so I just started a charm divination collection. I love that. have wanted to get into that.
Yeah.
Have you seen that before? Charm divination. So it's like some people have certain mats or cloths that they might use or they might not, but different charms, and each one represents a different thing. So you might have like a cat, or you might have a skull, you might have just a bunch of different charms, and then you cast them. From my understanding, it's typically something that's cast, like a rune or maybe
Cowrie shells.
Yeah, shells. Shells. Yes. And so you would cast them and then read them.
Cool.
Yes, I love that idea. Let us know if you can. Did you collect your charms yourself, or did you get like a starter kit? I've seen a couple. I should do that. Maybe I should order something and like review some.
Yeah.
That would be really cool.
Is it a kit, or do you just like go to the jewelry store and buy little
I guess you
charms
could
for
do
a
both. I
bracelet?
have seen people sell like a kit where
Okay.
they'll give you certain charms in your cloth.
Starter kit?
Yes. It looks like. Oh, okay. They like compiled their own. They had so many charms
That's
already.
nice.
I have quite a few charms too. I usually put them in bags, like
Go
spell
through your jewelry
bags.
box
Or,
and start picking things out.
yeah.
That's
Took
a
them
great
off of
idea.
old bracelets. Yeah,
Perfect.
that's a
Yeah,
great
that's a great
idea.
idea.
Maybe we'll do that. Let's see. I recommend History of Magic by Susanna Lipcomb. Looks like it says. I wonder if that's who wrote the one that I have. I have a couple of ones. I think mine's History of Witchcraft and Magic, so it might be a different one. But yes, I would definitely look at anything that talks about history, especially if you, well, I guess it doesn't matter if you want a new practice or a new religion, but if you're looking for the magic in your
Yes.
existing spirituality, look at the history of witchcraft and magic, because you'll see that it's existed throughout all of time in different forms and different rules around it. All right, if you've got more questions, keep them coming. We're having fun talking. We can probably hang out another 20 minutes.
And I think of, like I said, I wasn't raised Catholic or anything, but I think about, we have our smudging and we cast a circle. But if you think about a Catholic church and they go around with the incense and they do
cleansing,
so,
yeah.
there's a lot of similarities when you see they're not too dissimilar
Right,
from each other.
right.
They might use different vocabulary or but it's very similar.
Similar ideas, like with the smoke
At
cleansing.
the end, you have your cakes and ale, where you have refreshments.
Or yeah.
Ground you from the ritual, so it's very similar.
All right, so someone says, are there any books you recommend? The first really basic one I would say is Modern Witchcraft and Magic by, I think it's Lisa Chamberlain. That one is very inexpensive, very short, but this is this type of witch and what most of them generally practice, and then it's like a good jumping off point. And then I would go to some history. All right, and then I had a question about advice for crafting your own spells. I love it. I love writing spells. It's so much fun. Spells and rituals. So I tend to look at them in 2 to 3 different parts. So the first thing is you have to know what you want, what your intention is, and then that's how you'll decide your correspondences and what kind of links to it. So if you want to be relaxed or you want love, maybe you choose lavender, or you choose a rose quartz, and so on. That's going to help you pick your materials. From there, choose a symbolic action and some form of communication. So your symbolic action might be, you might be lighting a candle, so you'll do candle magic. And so then you'll follow the, string along with your correspondences. It's a pink candle, or it's a purple candle, whatever. Or I guess blue for relaxing.
Blue.
Yeah.
Too.
So then you would, branch off of that with your symbolic action. Your symbolic action can be a gesture, so maybe you want to banish something or you want to attract something. And then your form of communication. Are you going to speak an incantation? Are you going to just focus and visualize? How are you going to tell that ingredient what you want it to do? Anything you're going to add?
I was just going to say, I think you have a wonderful template to build a spell.
I do. I have a little bit of a method. Rinse and repeat. Let's see. Hello. Try to love the dark. I like that name. You should try to love the dark. Definitely look at history and symbology. Agree. We talk a lot about deeper meaning in our coven, and we talk about seeing symbolism like in your everyday life. Let's see. Any more questions? Oh, there's another one. Okay, so someone is looking for a different spirituality. So I would start with History of Witchcraft and Magic, or whatever the other recommendation was another History of Magic. And probably that one, modern witchcraft and magic. I think that'll point you in the right direction. And then start, finding the magic that already exists. Crafting your own spells. Okay, answered that one. Okay, I think we've got all of our questions. Okay, I'll give it another minute. Let's see if anyone else has another question. Oh, someone's going to give a good book recommendation. Is being a witch something you learn or something you're born into? Good question. I think a lot of us, we all already have some innate magic. You do have people who are called hereditary witches, but it's not that they have a special DNA, but it's that their family has practiced, and so they inherently taught them. So my children could probably call themselves a hereditary witch because I've passed it along to them, but that doesn't mean that they have anything special other than just learning, having the access to learning at an early age. So it's something you learn to tap into. We all have that energy, that magic, that ability, but it's something you learn to tap into.
I think that's it. I think everybody can do witchcraft. Everybody's got that innate inner ability to have, to be in touch with your intuition, be in touch with your whatever your divine source is, to connect to all of that, to the nature. Everybody can do that. I think witchcraft is that, like you said, you've connected and you're actually crafting. It's like, I'm trying to think of something simple, and this probably isn't the best example, but everybody can be a fireman, but unless you go be a fireman, that's the tool that you're using is
Right.
the action of doing it. Everybody can do magic, everybody can be, but it's whether or not you are actually doing the practice, if that makes any sense.
Are you practicing it?
Probably not the best example, but it's that kind of thing. If you're practicing it, you can do witchcraft, and everybody can. It's if you're doing it.
Right. I heard someone say that it's not practice makes perfect, practice makes progress.
Oh,
And I think that's really good with witchcraft because it's a practice.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it's not a religion to some, it's not, it can be both. Let's see. Agree, it's all about learning. And then, all right, so someone recommended Green Wiccan Spell Book. They said it's amazing. I don't know if I've read that one. I should go look at all of my books because I've got quite a few. Planning on doing more recipe spells on your blog. Yeah, I have a whole cookbook actually that I wrote, and I kind of release it sometimes. It's not just out for everyone. But yeah, I've got a ton of recipes, so I'll pull some out and do some on the blog. And I think that I'm going to release it for Samhain. If you join the coven, you'll get the cookbook because not a lot of people have it. Actually, there's only one in existence that's been printed because it was an ebook, and I actually sent it to my Nana for Christmas. She got my one and only cookbook. Yeah.
Good recipes too.
Getting intimidated by wanting to meet a certain aesthetic in your practice. I think aesthetic in your practice is fine, but don't let it stop you.
Oh, right.
I love pretty things. Obviously.
It's all about, just that's the extra icing on the cake.
Yeah.
To me, in the beginning, I used to think, I have to have the right ritual clothes, and if I don't have this tool, and then I got to a point, it's like, I do my rituals in my pajamas. I don't really care. It's about your intention and what's in your heart and what's in your spirit and what your connection is. This is all beautiful, but it's not necessary. You can do it without it.
Yeah, your practice is the cake.
Yeah, right. It enhances and it helps, but it's not necessary.
Yeah.
It's not,
I love that, yeah. Yeah, it's the icing on the cake. The
Yeah.
aesthetic.
Right.
If it inspires you, great. If it holds you back, don't worry about it.
Right.
Don't worry
If you
about it.
get too many hang-ups about not the right color candle, then
And you gotta be practical too. These are not my favorite candles because they're not the most beautiful, but I don't want to cause a fire. I wanted to take a pomegranate and put a taper in it and make it really pretty. I think I wanted to do that with the apples too last time.
Yeah.
But this is a small space, so you do have to be practical.
You have to be practical.
That's how it goes. All right, I've got a couple questions I saw. And What's your favorite? Hold on. Okay, what's your favorite fall recipe? Do you have a favorite fall recipe?
I don't really.
I like a lot of them. I mean, who doesn't love pumpkin, obviously? And
Pumpkin.
you know what? I really love pears. I don't think they get the same amount of love that apples and
Right.
pumpkins get.
Pears are good.
I really love pears, and I actually did a lot of cooking with grapes about a month ago for Mavon. So, and it's on my YouTube channel. I did like roasted grapes and sausages, and I was
Oh,
surprised.
interesting.
Yeah, the roasted grapes were really, really good. I could do it in type of savory. You don't have to do sausage. You can do any type of savory thing, but it was really good. And I did a grape pie. And so I was
Oh,
surprised. So I think
interesting.
get out of the pumpkin and apple stuff.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I love
branch
them.
out.
But yeah, there are a lot of great fall foods. And so I would say pears. I like poached pears and
I like
wine.
pears.
And I think that could be a great spell. I think that could be a really good spell.
I just like anything with any soup and bread. I guess that's probably
Oh,
my
I
favorite.
know, soup and bread. Yeah.
I look forward to soup and bread.
Yeah, I do make a pumpkin soup every fall, so I would probably say if there's one thing that I don't skip, it's the pumpkin soup. And I had a question about an herb for healing mental well-being. So the first one that comes to mind is wood betony. I would put it in like a spell bag or something that you buy or that you had close to you. I've got a couple spells in the spell book for mental well-being. I'm trying to think. I know one of them was wood betony that I like to use a lot. Aster, any type of aster flower. A lot of them pop up as weeds in my garden, so I just go like cut them and use them for magic. Aster is good, carries a lot of happiness energy to it. Do you do any like, green magic around mental well-being?
Not herbs. Usually,
Crystals.
stones. I like. To me, certain stones are like grounding.
Yes,
so that's
yes.
sometimes if I get anxious, I'll get something heavy, hematite or something like that. I'll hold on to and
Yeah.
get a grounding thing.
I would say, and sweet woodruff. Sweet woodruff. I don't think that a lot of people would necessarily put that, but it works really well for me for mental well-being and grounding. And then lemon. Lemon is a really good one. Because I think, especially with lemon, you've got the aromatherapy aspect too. It just
Right.
smells very happy. Would love to write some of your spells in my book of shadows. Wonderful. So yeah, the spell book is coming out in March, but there's quite a few of them in the resource library on the Coven. I think I've got a couple of them on the blog. I do a variety of things on the blog. But if you want more spells, tell me because I can crank them out usually pretty quickly. Planning to do more recipes? Yes, I answered that one. Pumpkin spice latte is a spell. I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Do I practice elemental magic? Yeah, I would probably call my practice elemental based in a lot of ways. I was just saying that that's kind of where I start categorizing things in my mind is by the element. And anytime we do a formal ritual, we call the elements.
Mm-hmm.
And this is different for each practitioner, so this is a great thing to talk about, is that I see when you call the elements that you're calling the spirit of fire in, you're calling the spirit of earth and water in to your circle so that you've got balance.
The qualities that go with
yes,
it. So
yes.
whether you want the passion or you want the grounding or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
they all come together.
Yeah. Now, do you ever only call one or two, or do you
No,
always
I always call
four?
all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's either all or nothing. I call them all.
I do if I do it in a circle, in a ritual. I mean, it's a little bit different if I do a smaller spell because then I'm working with that particular energy, but I don't call. I'm not calling the spirit there.
I think if I'm doing a specific spell, I will call all the elements, but it will depend on if I do or I don't call a goddess or a god, depending on whether. So I might.
If it's a feminine energy you want, you might call goddess?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, exactly.
Okay.
To go with whatever it is I'm doing, but I always call the elements. Because we say spirit of energy or the element. When I first started, we used to say the watchtowers.
Yeah, I remember.
So to me, I think of, even though I still say spirit of the west and the water, I think of them as being watchtowers in my circle that sort of protect.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I like that. I like that visual. All right. Beware of water spirits, they can be spicy. I get that. I get that.
That's me perfect.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have especially a lot of, according to Zodiac, I've got a lot of water elements around me, and I'm a fire, so.
Oh, okay. I'm all
Yeah.
water, like everywhere. I'm so much water.
Yes, I got that. And also, especially because you do sea magic, right? You
Mhm.
have called yourself a sea witch, so
Mhm.
do you work with any water spirits? Like,
Sometimes general
Germany?
ones, and I've been around
Uh-huh.
different places. So when I've gone to the ocean, I have a thing that has water from the Pacific Ocean, and I went to a Lake Michigan, and so I have water from Lake Michigan or sand from different. So yeah, I kind of
Yeah.
you know, or shells from different places. So I
Mhm.
will bring in that
Mhm.
stuff a little bit.
Yes. Do you have any superstitions around bringing things from the beach? Do you give an offering, or do you?
I usually have a conversation usually
Yeah.
before I take
I
anything.
agree.
But yeah, is it okay?
Yeah. Feel out that energy.
The earth may be okay with me taking it. I don't know if the local authorities are always happy with
Yeah.
that. But yeah, no.
That's true, because it's different for
It
different
could
beaches
be,
you go
right.
to. Yes, absolutely. All right. Is your coven, hold on. Do you have spells regarding getting a job? I have a really hard time getting a job. I just talked about one of these. Light a green candle. First anoint it with some sort of clove oil if you can, or just maybe put cloves around it. Light a green candle, and then say some sort of incantation, meditation, something, some form of communicating like you've already got the job that's right for you. And then when you blow the candle out, snuff it.
Snuff it, yeah.
Snuff it. So if you don't have like a snuffer, do I have it out here? If you don't have one of these, just use like a cup, will work. And then wash your hands in the smoke. That is very important. Wash your hands in the smoke. If you need to relight the candle multiple times, that's fine. And ideally do it as the moon is waxing, as it's from new moon to full moon, as it's growing, not as it's getting smaller. That would be what I would suggest. All right. And
be very clear with what job you want, because
Oh,
I
yeah.
did that one time in town. I said, I want to work for the library. And I got offered the job at the library, and I'm like, that wasn't the branch I wanted.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, be
I
clear.
said I did it again, and I really want that branch. Okay.
I need to add an addendum to my spell. It happens.
It does.
Our coven, is your coven like Dianic, Celtic, Nordic, Alexandrian? Good question. I call ourselves a coven of domestic witches. So we come from different spiritual backgrounds. We don't practice one particular spirituality. We do tend to use Wicca as the jumping off point, just so that we're all using the same phrases to describe things, because it can get confusing when you're digital and remote. But it's a coven of domestic witches. So if you identify as a kitchen witch, green witch, or house witch, then it's the coven for you.
You're the eclectic witch.
Yeah,
That's the place
I'm
to
sure a
be.
lot of people would use eclectic, right? But we do really emphasize your personal experience and your authentic experience, instead of reading what other witches are doing, or other spiritualities, or other cultures. And we do learn, but we look at the deeper meaning of why someone might be doing something, and then trace it back to the symbolism and what it means to us.
Mhm.
So that's really what we emphasize on, especially with spirituality, when we're learning about what other people are doing, is okay, how is that actually mine? Like, how is it uniquely mine, instead of I'm just learning it and copying it.
It's very personal. So once you learn the foundations, I think, the basic foundations, then you start to build, you might take a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and sprinkle it around and make it very personal. I'd say the only caution is that you don't want to mix cultures that historically didn't get along.
Oh yeah,
Like
family feud.
right. So you want to be
Or
careful
not
about
family,
who your gods and goddesses you're calling, that they're not. You wouldn't bring in necessarily the Romans and the Celts together, kind of thing.
Unless you wanted to start a war.
Unless you start an war.
Depends on your intention. Okay. Knowing me, on Samhain, I'm gonna light a candle, burn incense, and then fall asleep. I mean, as long as you don't fall asleep while the candle's lit, but
Right.
it doesn't have to be elaborate. You could
Right.
just play. Well, I'll post this. You can just play it back in the background, and then your ritual's happening in your sleep. It's all right. It's okay. All right. Let's see. eclectics. We've got quite a few people who would describe themselves as eclectic. And then any easy morning practices. Oh, I do a morning, I call it like 20 minutes of intention. Yeah, I think that's probably what I call it, or devotional time. And I have some statues and an altar set up, and I'll light incense, sometimes a candle. I'll give an offering, and I'll go through a little bit of a prayer, I guess you would say, and give gratitude and express things to the universe or God, goddess, deity, whatever is on your altar, for the blessings that you already have. And then if there's anything that I need to hold space for, so we have our intention circle, and that's where anyone, if you need someone to hold space for you, you can go fill out an intention request. And so during that time, I'll usually do my intention requests and hold space for other people, or if there's something that I kind of need to hold space for or just think on. And I'll do that for a couple moments, and then I might pull cards. I'll usually pull a couple cards, and it takes maybe, I allot 20 minutes, but it probably doesn't take that long. It doesn't take but maybe 5 or 10 minutes. And I try to do that about every morning. I've been doing that for almost a year now, and I really like it. What about you, Gina? Do you do
I don't do
anything
anything real elaborate. When I'm laying in bed, when I first wake up, I like my first thoughts to be positive, so the first thing I do is I say the Metta Bhavana prayer to myself. So that's my routine, is I just say this prayer every morning, and it goes from me to you to we, and then I start my day, and then if I do, then when I go down and have breakfast, I put my intentions in my tea, and brushing my teeth, things like that. Then I kind of sprinkle it in as I'm going about my morning, but really my first thoughts right from the get-go is that prayer.
Yeah.
I think it's right.
Whoops.
Screwy.
Oh, am I still here? Yes, I'm here. Okay. Hopefully it didn't cut me off. Hopefully it didn't cut you off. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be one chunk of time if it's sprinkled throughout the day. Again, looking at the symbolism, if you're putting something in your coffee and stirring it this way or that way, that's a symbolic action. Brushing your teeth is a symbolic action. Looking at the symbolism of what you're already doing. And then I call it witchy habit stacking. Okay, let's make it witchy. Let's make it witchy. So you don't have to set aside a time. If you're able to, it does help. It helps give you a regular practice, but that doesn't have to be what you do. You don't have to set aside a time. All right, let's see. Stirring coffee with intention is a daily practice for a lot of people, and that's so great for it to be something really simple and easy. And so many people are doing it. I love that. I think about that when because I have the Naturally Modern Witch calendar, and I think about that when I do anything on the calendar. I'm like, oh, everybody's doing this today.
I love that calendar. It's like I will look at it and I go, oh, I can do that today. That's and at least for me, I find that a lot of it doesn't have to be. It's not necessarily tied to that day. It's a good practice. So like I think one of them was sprinkle cinnamon in your coffee for whatever it was that you said that day. It's like you could do that any day. So I highlight the ones that I think, oh, I can do this anytime. Just let me remember to do it. And some of them are very day specific. I'm like, oh, it's perfect because I didn't have a plan for that day. But now there's something there that I go, I can do this intentionally for this day.
And it goes along with, I haven't shown them side by side actually, but it goes along with the day planner that I have, the Natural Modern Witch planner, because there's a part where it says my month of magic or this month of magic, and it says like what spells do you want to do. So you could look at the calendar and say these are the spells I want to make sure I do. And some of them are sort of specific, but it doesn't have to be that day. So I'll look at the astrology for the month, and I'll say, oh, okay, Mercury in retrograde this day, carry this, for the week, or I guess it's a little longer than that, but carry this while Mercury's in retrograde. And so there are some of them that are, I don't know if time sensitive is quite the right way to put it, but there are some of them that, they're based on the energies. I look at all the energies. I look at, first I do the moons and what's waxing, what's waning, where's the full moon, where's the new moon, then I go to astrology, then I go to the day of the week and look at the symbolism of the day of the week, and then fill it in.
And it's great too, because sometimes it's like I don't necessarily have a plan for the full moon today. I don't have anything going on that I need, but you give a little suggestion. It's like, okay, at least I start getting in the habit of doing something every day that even though I didn't have an intention, at least there's something I can do. There's an action I can take that's witchy, and
Right.
I like that.
It doesn't have to be a full ritual, just like one little simple thing. Used to draw a pentagram with my spoon and my tea or coffee every morning.
Yeah, well,
Yes,
that's a good
yes.
idea.
It is a
You can
great
easily do that.
practice.
That's
Yeah.
That's perfect.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up. Any last minute questions? My kids are going to come barreling through the door any minute now. All right. I think we're good. Okay. All right. I'm going to post this, the replay. I think it'll go on YouTube. I don't think I can do a replay on TikTok, but I'll put it on YouTube. You can get to my YouTube account from the top of my page, and it'll be there. If you want to replay it on Samhain, go for it. If you have any questions, send me a message or email. I'm here. All right. Blessed Samhain, everybody. Good night.